All right, reporting live from jnequipment.com. Today we're going to show you a video on an issue that a few customers are having. In this situation, you might have ordered a brand new pressure washer with a Honda 13 horsepower engine, and it might not be starting for you, or maybe it's giving you some problems. These are issues that happen sometimes. A lot of times it's very easy to fix, and we're going to kind of walk you through why it's happening, what's going on, and how we're going to resolve it. So the first thing I could tell you is what's happening a lot of times is during the shipping, when this is on the back of a semi truck, these units are kind of shaking around a lot and maybe bouncing around in the back of the trailer if the driver isn't super careful on his ride. And what happens is oil from the oil pan, it's working its way into areas where oil is not supposed to be. When this happens, it's going to stop the engine from turning on. Luckily, it really doesn't cause any damage to the engine, and these engines are so simple that it's pretty straightforward to resolve it. And in this video, I'm going to show you, it's really just 3 steps, how to resolve the issue you're having if you got a brand new pressure washer, but for some reason you just can't get the engine turned on. If you follow these 3 steps, there's a 95% chance we'll get it going for you. To use these steps, we're already going to use a few tools. I have a screwdriver, which I'm only going to use with my spark plug removal tool. This should come with your pressure washer, and I'm just going to use this so I can turn this tool when the time comes. So I'm using a screwdriver for that. And I also have just 2 adjustable wrenches here. I've got a rubber mallet and just kind of some drain pans, and I'll show you why we might need these in case we have to get oil out of areas they're not supposed to be. So since these are fairly simple engines, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm just going to explain. This engine only needs 3 things to really turn on: air, spark, and fuel. One of these 3 components is the reason why this unit, for whatever reason, or your unit, is not turning on. So the first thing I like to do is we're going to come right here to this air box. I'm going to pull this air box off, and I'm going to get here to my air filter. I want to go ahead and pull off my air filter really quickly and inspect it. If a unit was flipped over on its side or bounced around violently a little too much during shipping, we might find some oil residue here, maybe even here where the filter was sitting. You know, I like to tell people, kind of give your oil filter a little squeeze, your air filter a squeeze. See if you see any oil on it anywhere. It's rare, but these can get soaked with oil because it will absorb any oil that makes its way here. And if that does happen, it's going to stop this machine from breathing. So this is one of the main things I check. And during the testing process, I might even leave this off just so that I know the machine is breathing well. I would definitely don't recommend ever running your engine without the air filter. But, you know, for the purpose of just double checking what's going on, trying to get it started, in this situation, you know, you could kind of just reattach this to protect debris from getting into your engine. And, you know, it's a good way to just kind of run some diagnostics. You know, and obviously, in a regular running situation, we always want to make sure we have our air filter on. But one of the first things we want to double check is the air filter, that it's not soaked with oil. You know, you can even pull this foam piece down and kind of look to see if you see any oil or oil residue. I usually tell people, if you're barehanded and you squeeze this, you'll kind of feel the oil on your hands if it's been soaked with oil. So that's one thing you want to double check. And like I said, if it is soaked with oil, and you want to verify whether it's your air filter or not, just pull off the air filter, put this cap back on, and see if it'll turn on without this filter kind of like clogging the air intake. I always compare this being soaked with oil is like attempting to breathe through a wet shirt. It's very difficult to do that. And if your engine can't breathe, it definitely won't start. So one of the steps will be looking at the air filter. I'm just going to leave it off so we can remember that's one of the steps. The very next step, and one of the most, if not the single most important step, we're going to pull off this spark plug boot, which is right here. and I can just pop that right off with my bare hand. When I pop that off, I'm going to expose a spark plug in here. This engine only has one spark plug. That's when this spark plug removal tool comes in handy. One side kind of has like a socket end, and that's going to fit your spark plug. Once you got it on there, we're just going to use our screwdriver to run it through this gap and break that spark plug loose. Once I got it loose, we're just going to go ahead and unthread it and pull it out. If your engine's not starting, there's a very good chance in this stage we might see some oil, moisture, or residue here and on these threads. What we want to do in that case is we want to get a rag, kind of make sure we get that nice and dry. If this is wet, obviously it will not spark. With no spark, our engine will never turn on. If we find oil residue here, one thing we want to do is we want to get a rag or some paper towels and just lightly place them right there. I'm not stuffing them down into the hole, I'm just placing it there. While this is placed here and the spark plug is removed, I'm going to come over to my recoil and I'm going to pull it. When I do this, there's going to be no compression. Because the spark plug is out, it's going to be very easy to pull this. It's not really any compression, not very much resistance without the spark plug. But by doing this, I'm forcing air out of the hole that I just removed the spark plug from. And what that's going to do is that's going to shoot any oil that got trapped in this area out. So really, I want to pull this, honestly, about 20 times simultaneously, just like I'm doing now. And by doing this, I will shoot oil out of that area. And I'll intermittently check my rag. This unit doesn't have oil in it, so I'm not seeing any evidence of oil here. But if you did have oil in there, you would see, you'd have like a little bit of an oil stain. And you would pretty much keep doing this until no oil is coming out of that area anymore. So we would just keep doing this process to clear the oil out of there. Once we get that done, our spark plug is clean. We still have our gap. We're going to go ahead and use the very same tool to reinstall the spark plug. Spark plug goes in nice and snug. You know, I always tell people don't over torque it. Just need to go in there, give it a little quarter turn, and put that boot back on. You kind of feel a click when it's all the way installed. And that's how I know it's back on. There's really only one more step to this. The last thing that could be happening, air and spark, we just went through, which leaves us with the fuel. I'm assuming the fuel you're using is good fuel and not old gas that's been sitting in your garage for a couple months. The last thing that can happen is sometimes we end up getting a little bit of oil here in this bowl. So we need to get the oil out of the bowl. There are two bolts here on the bottom of the carb. One's at a 45-degree angle and one's at the very bottom. To drain the carb, we really only need to pull out this one here that's at the 45-degree angle. When you do this, I always tell people, have some rags ready. If you don't have rags, have a little cup or maybe a funnel, because it will most likely drain a little bit of fuel. But you know, just be ready for that situation as it comes. I'm just gonna kind of put some rags around because this is a brand new unit I just pulled out of the box. I'm not expecting there to be much fuel in here, but these are tested at the factory. So there is a little bit of fuel. You see it's automatically now dripping out. So I would actually pull this out, allowing the fuel to drain out. You might see bad fuel in here. You might see a little oil mixed in here. This will drain all the fuel in your tank. If you pull this out, it will drain every last drop out of your tank. Once you get it all drained out, you're going to reattach this just like that and snug it up. Once you've taken those 3 steps, there's a really high chance, I would say 90% chance, if you take those 3 steps on a unit that's brand new but is not starting, 9 times out of 10 it'll start. I've literally had units where I have oil escaping from areas that you wouldn't expect, including up here by the air filter. I've had oil dripping around here from the manifold. Because once the oil goes in areas it's not supposed to be, it will find its way out naturally. So if you see that, honestly, don't panic. These are simple engines, and that honestly does not hurt the engine, but we do want to get it stood up to let the oil drain down. We want to get as much back to the oil pan as we can, but by taking those 3 steps, those are the 3 areas where oil might get stuck and can't escape naturally, so we need to help it by either cleaning or changing our air filter, making sure we don't have any particulates here on our carb, getting nice fresh fuel in there, and making sure our spark plug is clean and our firing chamber doesn't have oil or oil moisture in there. Those are going to be the 3 absolute steps. If you take those 3 steps, there's a 95% chance that you will get your unit started. Like I said, I've had people call me and you know, they're really upset and concerned, rightfully so, because they've got oil, you know, around here or coming from under this plastic case. And, you know, to an untrained eye, you would think, oh, this unit is ruined. It's really not. It's not ruined. It's really just, we just need to kind of do these 3 steps. Sometimes it takes a few hours to get the oil to drain down back to the oil pan. So I like to set it up straight, give it a few hours to make sure the oil is draining naturally using gravity, and take those 3 steps. Besides those 3 things of your unit not starting, the only other issue we ever run into is sometimes I have individuals who say, I got my pressure washer running, but I'm not getting any pressure. At that point, because these pumps are brand new, sometimes the valves in here can get stuck just because these units are tested, so water is run through prior to them shipping out. So sometimes the particulates in the water, you know, and normal water does have mineral deposits in it, it will cause the valves to get stuck. If that were to happen, where you got your unit running but you're feeling like you're just not getting any pressure, a lot of times while the unit is running and we got the water turned on and everything, so we got our water hose hooked up, we got our gun hooked up, if you actually just kind of give these a few taps right on these 6 bolts, kind of like that, you might break those valves loose and your unit will kind of wake up, as I like to say, and it'll suddenly start working perfectly again. Pretty normal. Sometimes valves get stuck. A lot of times they unstick almost the moment water rushes through it and you kind of come on and off the trigger a few times. If that doesn't happen, what I like to do in my shop is I run the unit, I'm going on and off on the trigger, and at the same time, I'm giving it some taps. If that doesn't resolve it, the last little thing it could be is there could be a particulate piece that gets stuck in your unloader. And to resolve that, believe it or not, we're just simply going to loosen this bottom bolt here. That is going to be on there pretty tight. And we're going to drop this down. When we drop this down, there's going to be a little ball in here. We don't want to lose that ball. That is our easy start valve assembly. Just want to show you guys what's in there. Here's that ball. You can see it there. and it was inside of that seat. I'm just gonna leave it in there for now. And what you'll do is honestly just get your garden hose and flush this with your garden hose. Just kind of spray water in there. Once you get water sprayed in there, it'll clear whatever contaminant might have been in there. And then we'll just reinstall this carefully. One thing I always like to remind people is that brass is a very soft metal. So just be gentle on it. Even though they are attached tight, it's easy to strip brass. It's very easy to strip brass. So that's why you see I'm using hand tools. If you're using power tools, just be very careful. You know, turn your settings down a little bit because you can strip brass components fairly easily, in my opinion. Those steps are pretty much all it's going to take to get your unit running. Obviously, we always recommend that you give us a call if it's giving you a hard time. If you called in, someone might have referred you to watch this video. If that's the case, most of the times, if you go through these steps, it will get you running. The steps you just saw here are, 95% of everyone's issues, especially if you got a brand new unit. They are brand new. Sometimes in the shipping process, oil does end up where it's not supposed to be. We just need to get that oil out of those areas. Those steps are really all it's going to take to get it going. Once you take those steps, obviously, just make sure you still have the appropriate amount of oil in your oil pan, your oil reservoir in your engine, because we're not sure how much oil might have escaped or soaked into the cardboard box, depending on how this was treated during the shipping. So just a couple things to keep in mind, but that is pretty much a step-by-step process on how to get one of these things running. If you get it brand new off the back of a semi-truck and for some reason it's not performing the way it is, you expect it to be. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us via our website, email, or social media. Thanks a lot for watching.